Hey y'all, thank you so much for joining me for another What's for Dinner. So on Monday, I made a chicken zucchini casserole. So you'll need some cooked chicken. I just went with a rotisserie. You'll need 2 zucchinis, a can of cream of chicken soup, about a half a cup of sour cream, and then for the seasonings, I just went with some salt, pepper, onion, and garlic powder. The original recipe called for a box of stovetop stuffing mix, and if you like that, that would go amazing with this casserole, but unfortunately, I'm not one of those people. I just cannot do the dehydrated onions in those. They just come out super crunchy, and there's so many, and I wish I could get past it, but I just can't. So I swapped that for this Pepperidge Farm herb season cubed stuffing. Also, the recipe called for a stick of butter, and I decided to cut that in half. So the first thing I did was I whipped out a large mixing bowl, and I'm just going to go ahead and pull apart my chicken. I ended up using the chicken breast and the chicken thighs. Also, you could cube up the chicken if you wanted a different texture. Just depends on your preference. So I can set that to the side now that I've got that done and get started on my zucchini. So I washed those really well, and then I just chopped off the ends and discarded those, and then I could go ahead and dice the zucchini up into smaller pieces. So the recipe that I was looking at called for 4 zucchinis, but I was reading the reviews and quite a few people said that their only complaint with this was that their casserole came out a little bit dry. And I can see why, because just those 2 zucchinis added a lot of volume to the dish, but that was my reason for cutting it in half. But with summer just around the corner, and I know that some of you guys probably grow your own zucchini and will have a large abundance of it and probably want to find ways to use it up. If you wanted to use the full amount, I would just recommend to double the cream of chicken and sour cream mixture, and that should solve that issue. But anyways, moving on to the next step, I have just pulled out another smaller mixing bowl, and I'm going to pour in about a half of the bag of those seasoned bread cubes. Then I'm going to melt down my half a stick of butter in the microwave and drizzle that all over the top. And then I'm just tossing everything together to get that butter distributed the best that I could. Now I'm going to add in, I'd say about a cup of those bread cubes to my chicken and zucchini mixture, and then I'm just going to save the rest for the topping. But now I can start to add in everything else. So I'm putting in my can of cream of chicken soup. If you don't like cans of cream of chicken soup, just use what you do like. You could do cream of mushroom, cream of celery, really anything. And now I can add in my sour cream. And then lastly, all of those seasonings. So I use lots of pepper, just a little bit of salt, and then, like I said before, onion and garlic powder. But if you wanted to add in extra stuff, go for it. Make this your own. Do whatever you want to. That is what is so fun about cooking. But yeah, now I'm just tossing everything together. This took some elbow grease, but we got it done. And I'm just going to set that to the side and prepare my casserole dish. So I'm just spraying that with some nonstick cooking spray. And of course, I'm just going to dump all of that out and spread that out evenly with the back of my spoon. Now all that's left to do is to sprinkle on those remaining bread cubes that I had reserved, and I'm going to pop this in an oven at 350 degrees. The recipe said 40 to 50 minutes, but all I had was 30 minutes to cook this before I had to be somewhere, but I think it worked out just fine. Everything was nice and hot. As you can see, the topping got nice and toasty. And then here is my plate. So this turned out so yummy. It was really different than, stuff that I normally cook. So it's really nice to change it up sometimes. And it was light, and it had a really strong Thanksgiving flavor, which is why I think I liked it so much, probably from the sage in the bread cube. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this. And I just served it with a side of some garlic butter broccoli. This whole meal was a 10 out of 10. Up next, I am going to be making some really delicious garlic butter steak bites. So I'm using a top sirloin steak. It's a little over 1.5 pounds, which is plenty for my family of 4. And the first thing I'm going to do is trim off the fat. You absolutely do not have to do this step. I know that a lot of people like to cook with the fat on the steak because it does provide a lot of flavor while it's cooking, but I just cannot stand to bite into a big piece of fat when I'm eating steak. So this is just personal preference. But the next thing I'm going to do is just simply chop all of this up into bite-sized pieces. Then I'm just going to take this Montreal steak seasoning by McCormick and sprinkle that generously all over the steak and massage it in. As always, use whatever seasoning combo you want to. This is just what I always have on hand, and it does pair really well with it. But even just plain salt and pepper goes really well with steak. But now that that is done, I can go ahead and drop these into my hot cast iron skillet. It's really important to have your cast iron really hot before adding these in. And also, I do have 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil in there. I did do this in 2 batches just to avoid overcrowding the pan because I wanted to have a really nice sear on both sides on all the pieces. So I did cook these for about 2 to 3 minutes, and then I flipped them over and let them go for an additional 2 to 3 minutes. And then I just kind of shuffled everything together to help brown the sides for like less than a minute. And then I can remove that to a separate plate. And just look at that beautiful sear on all the pieces. So pretty. And now back to the skillet, I am going to melt down 2 tablespoons of butter. And then I'm going to add in a ton of freshly minced garlic. I use like 6 to 7 cloves, but we love garlic in this family. And I just cooked that for a very short amount of time because as you can see, it wants to burn quickly. So you got to work fast once you add in that garlic. But now I'll just add it back in the steak and all of the juices that had accumulated on that plate. And I am just tossing every piece in that delicious garlic butter. I just wish you guys could smell this through the screen. My house smelled amazing while I was making this. But lastly, I'm just going to hit it with some dried parsley, and now it is ready to be served. These were a huge hit. I don't make steak all that often, but this recipe right here makes me want to have it all the time. And my husband especially really enjoyed this. He bragged on it all day about how good it was. So that's saying something. And then what goes better with steak than a baked potato? And yes, we have to have A1 sauce on our potatoes in this family. So good. And then lastly, I just made a simple side of asparagus. This meal was perfection. When I was at Myers, I came across this ranch seasoned bacon, and I had never seen this before, didn't even know it existed, and I thought that sounded really dang good, and I thought it would be really good on some BLTs. If you've been with me for a while, you know I love anything with ranch seasoning or just ranch in general, so I wanted to purchase it and let you guys know what I thought about it. So my first impressions of this was there is barely any ranch seasoning on this. Like, it's literally just on the edges, and it's just a very small amount. And then when it came out of the oven, as you can see, like half of it burnt, and I have never had that problem when baking bacon in the oven. So I don't know if it was a coincidence or if it was because of that ranch seasoning. I really have no clue, but luckily we don't mind some burnt bacon around here, so that wasn't that big of a deal. But here I have it on 2 pieces of toast with some mayo, lettuce, and tomato, and it was really good. I mean, you can't go wrong with a BLT. But I probably wouldn't purchase the ranch bacon again because that ranch flavor barely came through, so it was kind of pointless. I think I just paid for the label. But to go along with it, I made some air fried tater tots, and then I just opened up a can of peaches, and I always like to top it with some whipped cream. It just gives it that little extra something. And then I put a random cherry on top because I had a jar open in my fridge from that Easter ham that I made a little bit ago, and I thought that made it pretty cute, if I do say so myself. Next up, I am making salsa chicken. So I have added 2 chicken breasts to the bottom of my crock pot, and I'm adding in 1 can of black beans that I have drained and rinsed, followed by a half a bag of frozen corn, or you can use a can of corn drained. Also, a whole package of taco seasoning, and then a half a jar of salsa. I love the Great Value Cantina style salsa. It is the only one that I have ever actually enjoyed because, as I've mentioned in many videos, I can't do onions, so this one contains very few, and I got the idea from you guys to blend it up in the blender to make it a smooth sauce, and I'm telling y'all, it has been life-changing. I can finally make all the recipes that involve salsa, and I have been loving them. But I just cooked that on low for 4 hours. Here it is after the time was up. I'm just going to go in there with 2 forks and break apart that chicken. It should come apart really easily, and then this is what you are left with. This consistency was perfect. It wasn't like runny or anything, and the possibilities are endless with this. You could do so many things with this. You can do tacos, burritos, just whatever you want to, but I decided to use it in some burrito bowls. So here is mine. I have some basmati rice on the bottom as well as some lettuce, Of course, my chicken, bean, and corn mixture, and I did have some cheese that's melted over the top. You can't really tell. I did some sour cream, some avocado seasoned with salt and pepper, and some lime wedges, and then just a little bit of parsley to, give it some color. And I took the tortilla chips and scooped it up. I added a little bit of extra salsa on top of my bowl and mixed everything together. And it was hands down my favorite meal of the week. It was just simply incredible. For the last meal of the week that I made, I did an Instant Pot meatball, like cheesy pasta type dish. This was my first time trying it, so I started by adding 1.5 cups of water to the insert, and then I just threw in these Italian style meatballs. I threw them in frozen. I did 24 of them. Then I'm going to be using some bow tie pasta. I did a little over half of the box, or 8 ounces to be a little bit more precise, and I'm just going to kind of move that around into an even layer. And then you're going to want to whip out your favorite spaghetti sauce. I'm going with the Prego Traditional, and I am going to pour in that whole jar, trying to make sure it's evenly distributed. Instead of using a spoon, I just kind of took the jar to try and cover every bit of pasta so it does cook properly. And then I'm just going to be taking some Italian seasoning and just sprinkling that over the top, no certain amount. Then I'm going to lock my lid into place and make sure that that valve is set to sealing. Then I'm going to hit my manual button and I'm going to set the timer for 4 minutes. When that timer went off, I did a natural release for 5 minutes. Then I released the pressure and then removed the lid. And this is what we're working with. Now we got to add some cheeses. I started off with about 1/2 cup of some ricotta, followed by about 1 cup of some shredded mozzarella cheese, and then 1/2 cup of some shredded Parmesan. And I'm just going to stir all of that together to let that cheese melt nicely. And this is what it should look like. Definitely not the prettiest meal to eat, but it was really good. My only complaint with this recipe is afterwards, the pan was pretty hard to clean. I don't know if it's just me, but it's like anytime I use mozzarella or shredded Parmesan in my Instant Pot, it just kind of like seizes up a little bit, which makes it like really stringy and, like I said, hard to clean. So do any of you guys have any tips? Am I doing something wrong? I don't know. But like I said, it was really good and my kiddos especially loved it. Now I'm going to throw in the clips from our Easter dinner at my aunt's cabin. There was a ton of food and I got to see a lot of my family. It was such a good time and I look forward to it every year. And then after these clips, I'm going to throw in some clips of my kiddos playing in their cute little outfits and doing their little Easter egg hunt. I just love them so much and they're so cute and I just want to share it with you guys. So if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you and I will see you in my next one. Bye, guys.